Good afternoon. Welcome to another special City Club program. Welcome. My name is Susan Kelly, president of the club. Today we focus on the subject of Portland's future as seen through the vision of City Commissioner Dan Saltzman, who will share his plans for his second term in office. On Friday, 26th, we will again be in this room due to the renovations in the main ballroom. And our program will be on the future of volunteerism, featuring Allison Carl, Executive Director, Volunteer Works, Kate McPherson, Director, Project Service Leadership in Vancouver, Washington, and Jack McGowan, Director of Solve, and we will be here in this room. Please note, club members, that you can now make luncheon reservations online and receive your weekly bulletin in email form. If you prefer, just please let the office know. And anyone interested in obtaining a video or audio tape of this or any other club program, you can do so through the office. Videotapes are $20 and audio tapes are $10, and I like to call this our little profit center. Call Suzanne at the club and she'll give you more information. Before we begin today's program, I would like to recognize Jefferson Smith, who has a membership resolution to present regarding the club's endorsement of a pledge for all legislative candidates running during this election cycle. You've received copies as you came in. I hope you had a chance to review it. Following Jeff's presentation, I'll open the floor to discussion. If you have a point to make, please approach the microphone and make your comments in 1 minute or less. And following the discussion, we will take a vote just of those members present today. If the resolution passes with a majority vote here, then it will be referred to the Board of Governors at our next meeting in August. And since there will be no Friday programs during August, the board's action will be reported to all of you through our bulletin. So Jefferson, if you're ready, where are you?
I'm not ready, but I will speak.
And also, you can speak from there, that's great. So people with comments, please step close to the microphone. Jeff's only going to be a few minutes, and then we will be able to move through this.
Has everybody gotten a chance to look at this? Our legislature has been a disaster, an absolute unmitigated disaster. We're on our third crack to create a budget, and instead of a budget, we have been given a credit card. Our legislature has been a disaster. On this are a few modest proposals, and they're modest proposals that wouldn't ask to change any law, but just to send a signal to legislators that we should all try to get along a little bit better. That it shouldn't necessarily matter which party is in the majority to see to it that some good ideas get aired, and some good things get votes, and some good things actually happen. There was an era, we were here, for those who don't and most don't have any idea who I or the rest of us at our table other than Commissioner Stan are, Councilman Stan. Are you a councilman or commissioner? He's both, that's what I thought. We have been working to get young people involved to do something about the legislature, but there was a time, we had Hector McPherson last Saturday, who was one of the fathers of Oregon land use law, Senate Bill 100. And he talked about an era, he's a Republican, and he talked about an era in Oregon politics when you couldn't necessarily tell who was in the majority, who was the minority party. People talked about what the needs of Oregon were and tried to get votes on what should happen for our state, and not merely who should be in control and who should be in power. The Oregon Progress Forum has made a modest proposal. It's on your tables. The modest proposal has a few things, like making sure that people sit interspersed with people in the other party so they develop relationships, develop bonds of trust that go past ideology, including sending a mild signal that, hey, if there's a lot of support for something, if the minority party and a bunch of the majority party all agrees with something, then maybe it should get a vote. No law that we're required to get a vote, but just sending a signal that we won't, simply because we are in the majority party, lambast and stonewall and keep away any idea that isn't our idea. And trying to send a signal of cooperation in the legislature. And it's a modest proposal. This could matter, and I only have a couple more things. The Willamette River is a Superfund site. That doesn't mean it's super fun. What it means is that it is the dirtiest river this side of the Mississippi. And legislation to clean it couldn't get a vote. Couldn't even get a vote. And the reason it couldn't get a vote because it got stopped in committee. And as a result, we lost millions of dollars in Superfund money, federal money. Campaign finance reform couldn't get a vote. Lots of things can't get votes. Now, there's some in the majority party who would like to keep this. There are probably some in the minority party who are thinking, we will be the majority someday, and we want to keep exactly how it is now. Majority beat on the minority. I think over time it's a bad idea. We need a legislature that's a little bit better. Oregon Progress Forum is a nonpartisan group with legislators from both parties, with citizens from both parties. Some of the people in this crowd are members. And this was reached through consensus, and let me tell you, lots and lots and lots of dialogue. And it could be changed a little bit. There are things on here that I want a little different. But the consensus of the group was this is pretty good, and this would do something. And a modest endorsement from this organization would help go and send it to legislators and say, hey, think about it. We're not asking to pass any law, but think about it. Let's have a slightly more congenial legislature in Salem. Regardless of the party, let's try to have some good ideas. That's it. Thanks very much for the time.
Hi, I'm Katie King, and I've worked with the legislature in one capacity or another since 1994. Legislators of both parties, and I want to say that I've been very proud to play that type of role. And one thing that Jefferson Davis is right about is when you work in Salem, everything we do is all about building relationships. And after reading this pledge, one thing that I see is that that we are advocating for something that could potentially be very divisive. For example, the clause, I would support committee hearings, work sessions, and committee votes on any legislation that has substantial one-third support in the majority caucus. Well, I can think of a lot of socially divisive issues that might have support in the majority caucus that would break people apart. Every session, about 5,000 bills are introduced, and only 1,000 of them are passed. And for a lot of them, there's good reason for that. But I would urge your no vote on this resolution today. I don't think that it fosters good relationships. Thank you.
Jane?
Thank you. Jane Cease, member of the City Club and former legislator. I think that there are a lot of good ideas in here, and if it were only the three bold areas of it, it might be something that I would want to support. But having been in the legislature for 13 years, in the majority party, when we did allow minority members to recommend but not select, for example, in that middle part, not select their own committee members, I would just caution you of some of the dangers of, for example, having a minority party select an anti-land use members, completely anti-land use members to be on the land use committee, or people who really don't believe in the policy that's been in the statutes for so many years. And it's that kind of thing that concerns me. I would much prefer to see this go to the board or the research board or a committee to overlook it and to word it much more in accordance to things that are city club policy. Right now, it sort of reminds me of the term limits, quote unquote, fix to the problem, which didn't really fix the problem. I think it goes a bit far in things that it recommends and needs some work on it. Thanks.
Thank you, Jane. Try to keep to a minute, please.
Chris Smith, like my long-lost cousin Jefferson, I'm a member of the Oregon Progress Forum and helped to put this together. Just a couple of reflections. One is that I have the honor of occasionally serving as parliamentarian for the City Club in our debates, and one fundamental principle of parliamentary procedure is you respect the rights of the minority as well, of course, as the rights of the majority. And I think a lot of what this pledge goes to is that principle. I know that sometimes this might cause some unpopular ideas to be talked about. I guess I think it's healthy for our democracy that we talk about unpopular ideas, not necessarily pass them, but talk about them. I would also make the point that the club has studied this issue to some degree. We have our 1997 report on the structure and process of the Oregon legislature, and one of the things it calls for is much more effective opportunities for citizen input. Well, if you can't even get a hearing on a bill, you're not going to have citizen input. So I think this is, in fact, in keeping with some of the principles that the club holds very dear, and I encourage people to vote yes on the resolution.
Okay, I apologize, Erwin. we're going to have to take a vote, and I'm sorry. We've already gone over our 8-10 minutes on
Caught me
this.
with my mouth open.
Okay, and so may I have a resolution from the floor to support this, this resolution and refer it to the board? Thank you. All those in favor, please raise your hands. All those opposed? Boy, are we too close? I would say it's a no. Okay. Okay, you're voting. If you said yes, it would send this, it would be approved by this body, present here, to go to the board, and the board will review and make a decision on it in August. Yes, Jefferson.
During that time, it would, and there's a question mark at the end of this, it would be appropriate for the Board of Governors to tweak it and ask Oregon Progress Forum permission to tweak it. Is that possible during that negotiation process if it received approval from here? Like, it's not the last word, right? It goes
Right,
to
we
what's
would do that on August 8th at our next meeting.
Okay, that's my question.
Madam President, I would call for a count of the hands.
All right. Staff, can you help me count? Okay. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Hold it while they're counting. We okay? All right, all those opposed, please raise your hand. Yeah, this is close. And the results? Whoa. Okay. We got to have faith, Aaron. Sit down. All right. All those in favor? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Assuming you are a City Club member, you know who you are. Okay? Ready for the no vote? All those opposed, please raise your hand.
Does that have to be a City Club members present at the meeting?
Yes.
Have we counted those who didn't vote?
Oh my God, you know, we got to get going on this. We have a wonderful guest speaker today. You know what? I'm going to keep moving. Our board host, seated at the head of the table, is Doug Marker, Chair of the Research Board and Director of Fish and Wildlife for the Northwest Power Planning Council, and he will have the honor of asking the first question. Following Doug's question, we will open the program to questions from City Club members in the audience, and please line up at the microphone before Dan is finished answering Doug's question, so we're able to get as many questions in before 1:15. Ask that question in 30 seconds or less. Broadcast of City Club programs this quarter is made possible in part by the corporate underwriting from Kaiser Permanente, Wells Fargo, and Zimmer Gunsel Frasca. We're grateful for their support. I'm going to proceed with the introduction of our guest today, and before then Dan begins to speak, we'll try to get this wrapped up. Today's speaker is Dan Saltzman, who was recently elected to his second term in office as a Portland City Commissioner. His responsibilities include management of the Bureau of Environmental Services, the Water Bureau, and the Office of Sustainable Development. Dan was born and raised in Portland, and us old natives are kind of proud of that these days when there's so many interlopers. Dan went to college at Cornell University and then on to get an MS at Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He spent many years in the private sector as a principal in an environmental engineering firm, and he served as staff for Ron Wyden and also, as we all know, as a county commissioner. Dan's focus is on protecting the environment, helping Portland to achieve a more sustainable future, and making Portland's children a higher priority. During the years that I worked across the hall from Commissioner Saltzman, although we never called him that, we called him Dan, I was struck by his dedication, his caring, and more than anything else, his tenacity. Everyone knew that when Dan sank his teeth into an issue, he wouldn't let go until he was satisfied with the results. This afternoon, we're going to be hearing about which issues Dan Saltzman plans to bite off during this next term. Our dogged Dan, we could say. So please join me in welcoming Dan Saltzman. So, Nancy, are we ready yet?
Yeah, it wins in favor of 51%. It's exactly.
Okay, that's good. This is great. I love City Club. So the resolution passes, goes to the board. Thank you.
Well, thank you for not putting me in the position of casting a tie-breaking vote. I tried to sit on my hands during this one. Well, thank you, Susan, and it's always a pleasure to be here at City Club today. Lately, here in Portland, we've gotten used to the national magazines heralding us as the nation's most livable, most child-friendly, most bike-friendly, just about most all-around wonderful city. And the magazines are right. Portland is a fabulous place, and we know it. We also know that much of what makes Portland so wonderful today stems from bold, far-sighted actions that were taken decades ago. Now let me ask you to think about the boom years of the 1990s, those glorious years of seemingly unlimited prosperity. I believe that we did not take similarly far-sighted actions during the 1990s that will pay big dividends 20 or 30 years ago, or 20 or 30 years from now. We've been doing a generally good job of the day-to-day task of keeping Portland running, and we've been doing a good job of fulfilling the vision that an earlier generation of leaders articulated for us. But I fear that in some critical areas, we are not thinking clearly about what we want Portland to be. Note that I said what we want Portland to be, as opposed to saying what we want Portland to look like. The foundation of a successful city isn't made only of bricks and mortar. It is also built on people, families, and ideas. And Portland has some tremendous natural advantages in these areas, and I want to talk about the things I'm going to do to capitalize on them. Before I talk about where we should go, I want to talk about a bit about where I've been. That is, what I've learned in my first term on City Council, or as I like to say it, the education of an innocent. Now, some of you all may be surprised by that term. After all, as Susan said, I was on the Multnomah County Commission for 5 years. I used to work on Ron Wyden's staff. So I wasn't exactly born yesterday when it comes to politics. But still, as I look back on these first 4 years in office, I do feel that I did come in as a bit of an innocent. For instance, I was surprised that the very first day I started here, people asked me, what office are you going to run for next? Before I'd even hung the art on my walls, people expected me to be thinking about which office I wanted to start decorating in the future, whether it be in City Hall, Mahonia Hall, or the halls of Congress. Now, maybe it's just me, but I find that a bit bizarre. It may shock the conscience, but I ran for City Council because I really wanted to be on City Council. I do love this job. But as the questions persisted, it did cause me to think, and so at the end of this speech, I will have an announcement about my political future that may seem surprising. But I'm getting ahead of myself. As an innocent, I took office brimming with new ideas. I was going to push Portland to the forefront of the green economy, invest in our children, make the city run more like a business. Of course, running something like a business had a better ring to it before WorldCom, Arthur Andersen, Enron. But still, I do put a high value on old-fashioned business values like good customer service and providing good value for money spent. As I prepared to assume office, I imagined the barriers to getting things done melting away before the power of my compelling original vision. Okay, so maybe not, especially the part about barriers melting away. Still, I'm happy to say that we did make progress in all of these areas. We've taken on improving the way the city operates and reducing its cost. Now, as you may know, I'm an engineer. That's what explains where all my charisma comes from. So it's in my nature. It's in my nature to try to make things work better. We recently undertook a sweeping review of the city's administrative structure. Some results: we've centralized our human resource functions and our information technology functions across all the bureaus. We've centralized those and saved $10 million over 2 years. We've consolidated the city and the county's information and referral services, which saves money and provides better service. You can now dial one phone number to find out who you need to talk to in the city or the county. I led the voter-approved effort in 2000 to change the city charter so the bureau directors are now at-will employees who can be removed if they don't perform their jobs. After all, these are our top managers. They should be judged by the quality of their performance, not their civil service status. Those are some of the nuts and bolts things I've been working on, but we've made progress on long-term investments as well. One accomplishment I'm particularly proud of is the work done by our Bureau of Environmental Services to address the fact that when it rains, our 100-year-old sewer system combines rain, runoff with sewage and dumps it into the Willamette River. We're in the middle of a massive project to virtually eliminate these combined sewer overflows, or CSOs, by the year 2011. This project, the CSO project, is the largest infrastructure project in Portland's history, with a price tag approaching $1 billion when all is said and done. Before we began working on the CSO project, more than 10 billion gallons of sewage was discharged into the Willamette River and the Columbia Slough each year. 10 billion gallons. We've taken a number of actions already to reduce CSOs. One focus has been prevention. Keeping stormwater out of the sewer system in the first place is good for ratepayers and it's good for the environment. Under Director Dean Marriott's strong leadership, Environmental Services has worked aggressively to encourage more than 30,000 people to disconnect their downspouts, keeping almost 600 million gallons of polluted runoff out of our rivers each year. We've also worked with Friends of Trees and other groups to plant trees and restore streamside habitats. A single mature tree intercepts 4,600 gallons of rainwater a year. These efforts not only protect our streams and our watersheds, they save us money. And we've also eliminated more than 99% of the sewage overflows into the Columbia Slough as of the year 2000. Taken together, these actions have reduced CSOs into our rivers from more than 10 billion gallons to about 3 billion gallons a year. But we're not standing still. Coming soon, and next up, is the big pipe on the west side of the Willamette River. Soon to be under construction and due for completion in 2006, the big pipe, true to its name, 14 feet in diameter, will be over 100 feet below Nadeau Parkway. It will cross underneath the Willamette's riverbed to a pump station to be built on Swan Island that will be as deep as the Portland building is tall and about the same size. As you might imagine, this is an extremely challenging project. Its completion, along with the future East Side Big Pipe, should eliminate almost 95% of all combined sewer overflows into the Willamette River. With this project coming up, I'm particularly proud that we have set a new standard for working with local, minority, and women contractors. By working aggressively to include local contractors, especially minority and women contractors, in the CSO project, we are making sure that the big pipe doesn't just pump stormwater and sewage, but pumps dollars directly into our community. It will provide a much-needed economic stimulus for Portland. Another accomplishment with long-term implications was my effort, along with Commissioner Sten, to create the city's Office of Sustainable Development in the fall of 2000. Its purpose is to establish more of a focal point for the notion that we should consider the impact of our actions today on future generations, they will have on future generations. The office creates policies and programs that integrate and tie together efforts related to energy efficiency, renewable resources, waste reduction and recycling, global warming, green building, and economic development. The mission is smart, saves money, and builds a new economic sector that Portland can help lead internationally. And I'm happy to report that in its first year and a half, the office is off to a great start. Director Susan Anderson has assembled a terrific team. The Office of Sustainable Development has already tackled projects, including increasing our impressive recycling rate to 54%, the nation's highest. Up next is commercial food composting, so that leftover beef stroganoff won't end up in a landfill. This could further boost the recycling rate another 5 to 10%. We've also made impressive gains in energy conservation that save the city almost $1 million a year. And we've created a cutting-edge green building program that was instrumental in facilitating such environmentally friendly projects as the brewery blocks and the EcoTrust building. The green building program in particular has been a national and international trendsetter. Portland now has 18 buildings either built or under construction that meet the national green building standards. That's the most green buildings of any city in the world. And we're just getting started. I also want to acknowledge that I've recently taken over the management of the Water Bureau, and I've been working with a very capable director, Mort Anashavarani, excuse me, Mort. And I look forward to working with Mort and the members of the council to assure that we continue to have a safe, clean, affordable water supply as well. Another area that we have begun to plant seeds, which will yield fruit down the line, is investing in kids. Perhaps no actions we can take will have a greater impact on Portland's future than how we treat our children. Two efforts I've been involved in are the creation of the Early Childhood Investment Fund and the funding of the Gateway Children's Center. The voter-approved Gateway Children's Center, located at 102nd and East Burnside, is a partnership between the county, the city, the state, the Morrison Center, and the Christie School. It's an innovative facility designed to help abused children. Its centerpiece is the Children's Receiving Center, a safe, home-like place for kids who are removed from abusive homes as they await foster care placement. An abused or neglected child has enough trauma without having to spend hours in the back of a police car or sitting at a caseworker's desk while they scramble to find a foster care placement at 3 in the morning. The Receiving Center is set to open this October, and I'm pleased to acknowledge Multnomah County Commissioner Maria Rojo de Steffi has had a great role in bringing this project to fruition. The Early Childhood Investment Fund was created by the City Council in 2001 and directs resources into proven programs for our youngest citizens. This $1 million annual fund has earmarked 30% of its resources to relief nursery programs. Relief nurseries give parents at risk of abusing kids access to respite care and parenting skills training. Relief nurseries are proven to dramatically reduce the incidence of child abuse. The remaining 70% of the fund's resources are directed towards making Head Start and Early Head Start available to kids who qualify, but are unable to get in because present funding serves only about half of the children who are eligible. Head Start and Early Head Start have been proven by research to make a real difference in the lives of children. And thanks to this fund, almost 100 additional poor kids in Portland now have access to these great programs. These first-term efforts have made a real difference, and I'm very proud of them. And yet we all know all is not well here. In just over a year, Portland has fallen from economic powerhouse to having the highest unemployment rate in the country. Our landmark local companies are gobbled up by outside corporations. It seems we're being hit by the economic version of the perfect storm. Long noted for its sterling environmental reputation, Portland has endangered species listing for its salmon, a Superfund site in its harbor, and as I mentioned before, raw sewage dumping into its rivers. Our public schools, long a source of civic pride, face a mind-boggling set of problems. And as we have learned in recent years about the importance of early childhood development and after-school programs, we have been unable, due to a lack of funding, to transfer this new knowledge into action. Earlier I talked about what kind of a city we want Portland to be in the next 20 to 30 years. Well, clearly this is not it. To avoid a future defined by the problems I've described will take leadership and vision in many areas. And I want to talk about 3 areas that I'm focusing on and touch on them briefly. First, we need to continue to clean up the Willamette, a clean, accessible river with a working harbor that supports thriving stocks of salmon can be the thread that stitches the east side and the west side of Portland together. I will work with Environmental Services to make sure the combined sewer overflow program proceeds on time and on budget. I will work with the port, state, and federal and tribal governments to make sure that our Superfund site gets cleaned up and not bogged down by finger-pointing and fruitless litigation. And I will work with the rest of the City Council to assure the Mayor's River Renaissance program represents a fundamental transformation of Portland's relationship with the Willamette, and not just a clever slogan. As I suggested at the start of this speech, keeping Portland great will not just be a matter of blueprints and construction projects. We also need to think of our intellectual and human infrastructure. My second major priority for the next 4 years is to tap local assets to make Portland the nation's leader in the emerging green economy. We're in a position to make use of an important comparative advantage we already have. Portland already is perceived nationally and internationally as being on the cutting edge of the green economy, and we already have in place a fast-growing nucleus of citizens and businesses who are committed to leadership in sustainable development. Now, I know that sustainable development, green economy, there are a lot of skeptics that think this is just a lot of hot air. But we may be close to our first major success. The North American headquarters and factory scheduled to be built by Vestas, the world's leading manufacturer of wind energy turbines. Not only will Vestas bring a much sought-after corporate headquarters to Portland, it will also produce more than 1,000 family-wage blue-collar jobs. Here are 2 other tangible examples of how we can transition to a green economy. Portland's development of new urban neighborhoods like North Macadam, and redevelopment of brownfields like McCormick and Baxter near the University of Portland offer the ideal venue for implementing the most far-ranging green building and development techniques in America. Through our use of green roofs, green streets, bioswales, and other emerging environmentally friendly building techniques, Portland can be an international showcase for sustainability. I love green roofs. They keep stormwater out of our rivers, and they reduce energy use. Their widespread adoption here may help attract one of the large European manufacturers of green roofs to set up shop in Portland. After all, Oregon is the nursery stock capital of the world, and plants are the fundamental stuff of green roofs. An even greater payoff may come from our efforts to establish Portland as a center for solar energy production. Perhaps the most exciting promise is the opportunity to turn Portland into a manufacturing center for solar electric cells, also known as photovoltaics, which convert sunlight directly into electricity. Portland has all the right ingredients to make this happen, including plentiful clean water, reasonable power costs, and access to major markets. Solar electric cells also rely on the same raw material as silicon chips, something this region is one of the world's leading producers of. In fact, within a 45-mile radius of downtown Portland lies 45% of America's silicon wafer production capacity. Even better, current technology to produce solar electric cells actually uses waste products from silicon chip production. To me, that's a true win-win situation, a new, clean industry that makes use of waste products from one of our largest current industries. And the future is even brighter. The market for solar electric cells is already growing fast, 30% annually, as compared to just 5% growth for silicon chips. And new, thin film deposition technology promises to dramatically decrease the cost of solar electric cell production, which will further ignite its growth. And again, Oregon is right there. Just last week, 2 researchers at Oregon State announced a breakthrough in thin film production that could lead to dramatic cost reductions for solar cells. Another effort that can spur Oregon's ascent to solar leadership, which I'm involved in, is the creation of a Center for Solar Excellence at Portland State University. Such a center would attract world-class solar energy research to Portland, and that's an essential ingredient that manufacturers consider in locating facilities here. Besides, you gotta love the idea of Portland prospering in a sunshine-based economy. The Portland Development Commission has identified sustainable industries as one of the potential target industry sectors for our future. My office, along with Commissioner Sten and Mayor Katz, are working with PDC to make sure that this approach gets the attention it's due. Finally, I want to talk about what I believe can have the most profound, long-lasting impact on Portland's future, and that's the Portland Children's Initiative. Simply put, it asks us to make children a higher priority, and it does so in a way that is smart, effective, and will help define what we want Portland to be. The Portland's Children's Initiative was referred by the City Council to the November ballot. The initiative creates a children's investment fund of $10 million a year for 5 years. It will invest only in proven, cost-effective programs in 3 areas to help children succeed. The first area is early childhood development. The second area is after-school programs and mentoring initiatives. And the third area is prevention of child abuse and neglect. And the best part about it is no new bureaucracy is created. There's no city office of children. 95% of the money goes straight to expanding existing services that have a proven track record so that they can reach more kids. Administrative costs are limited to less than 5%, and that's written into the law. The fund will be professionally managed and audited annually. There will be a Citizens Oversight Committee. Investments will be coordinated with other service providers to avoid duplication and backfilling. Now, $10 million is a lot of money, but it can't do everything. These 3 areas of investment were chosen because we know the need is great. Research shows that the investments in these areas can make a real difference in the lives of children and families, and they make a major contribution to the city's core mission. It's a well-worn cliche that our children are our future. Indeed, if I had $1 for every time a politician said that, we could practically fund this initiative. But despite the rhetoric, far too many of our children are not getting the support they need to thrive. A few snapshots tell the story. 40% of the children in Portland are living under or very near the poverty line. More than 40% of our 8th graders are not reading at grade level, even fewer for math. Portland's Police Bureau receives 14 reported cases of child abuse per day. The true figure is far worse because most cases go unreported. But statistics can't tell you the full story. To really understand the situation, you need to speak to people and hear about their lives. Late last year, when the city was considering creating the Early Childhood Investment Fund, I met a number of young people who had been through Head Start, and their stories moved me deeply. These are kids who grew up with very little support. Most had absent fathers and mothers who had not graduated high school. Many were living with the kind of poverty that makes hunger a daily concern. And each one credited the support they received in Head Start as being key to their success. These are kids who arrived at kindergarten ready to learn and whose lives have been transformed as a result. And if enough kids' lives are transformed, so is our future. The Children's Initiative also fits squarely within the city's core mission. These investments will make a major contribution to maintaining public safety, promoting a robust economy, and keeping family with children in our city. Investing in children improves our public safety. Child abuse is a public safety issue, and preventing it makes us safer. It's sad but true that victims often become victimizers, drug and alcohol abusers, and our homeless youth. After-school and mentoring programs have proven public safety benefits. The hours between 3 and 6 p.m. have the highest rate of juvenile crime. Giving kids a safe place to be protects them from being victims or getting into trouble. Finally, the Citizens Crime Commission concluded that targeted investments in proven early childhood programs are the most cost-effective way to reduce crime in the long run. Investing in our children also contributes to a robust economy. The Children's Initiative will improve the academic success of children. Failure to invest in our kids means that our other economic development strategies, even if successful, will often create jobs that Portlanders aren't qualified to fill. Investing in children makes Portland better for families with kids, too. After-school programs not only boost the academic success of kids, they also provide a major benefit to parents of school-aged children. For a parent, knowing that you can drop your children off at school in the morning and not have to worry about them until the end of the workday provides a tremendous sense of security. It makes better employees, less absenteeism, better employers. And this is especially important for the increasing number of single-parent families in Portland. Based on the experience in other cities that have passed children's initiatives, such as San Francisco and Seattle, we know that it works. In San Francisco, since the passage of their initiative, reports of child abuse and neglect have decreased 25%. High school completion has increased by 11%. Juvenile felony arrests are down 24%, and the foster care population has decreased by 19%. We've also learned from these cities that these public dollars can leverage significant additional investments in two ways. First, local foundations can be enlisted to match these investments. Seattle's Children's Fund is matched dollar for dollar by local foundations. I'm confident we can do the same thing here. Second, we know from our own experience that this money can count as a local match for additional federal investments. When we gave $100,000 to Early Head Start this year, they were able to take that and use it as a local match to generate $700,000 in additional federal investment. That's a 7-to-1 match. So to sum up, the Children's Initiative is a wise use of taxpayer dollars. It makes children a higher priority. It helps us leverage additional resources to advance the city's core mission, and investments in prevention save money in the long run. This is the sort of investment that will pay off for future generations. And by happy coincidence, tomorrow, July 20th at noon, we're having our campaign kickoff for the Children's Initiative at Columbia Park in North Portland. You're all invited to come out and learn more about the Children's Initiative and help make it a reality. So in conclusion, if we pursue the types of actions I've just mentioned, if we clean up our river, develop an economy whose prosperity is sustainable, and invest in our children, then perhaps future generations will hold us in as high regard as we rightly do the visionary leaders who came before us. And now, for that surprise announcement about my political future that I promised you earlier. I'm very pleased to announce here today in the City Club that I'm not running for mayor in 2004. Hey, somebody's got to hold down the fort. Seriously, I love my job. I'm very grateful that you've renewed my contract for 4 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan, and we look forward to you keeping your focus on these issues. In the spring election, the City Club reviewed a ballot measure that would have changed Portland's form of government to a strong mayor form of government. The City Club overwhelmingly voted against that measure, as did the citizens of Portland. But I'd like to ask you if you think that the issues raised by the ballot measure merit the City Council undertaking some form of charter review to look at the issues raised by that ballot measure.
I do think there are some issues that should be examined in the context of a charter review commission, and I would support forming one to look at that. Despite the overwhelming defeat of the Good Government Initiative, I think there are many issues that people did care about in that initiative. I just think there were aspects of the package that people perhaps didn't fully embrace. But I do think it is worth taking a look at our form of government and some of the issues, particularly around, do we want to have the commission form of government where each one of us kind of has our set of our bureaus and sort of our own little fiefdoms. I find that an awkward dynamic, to be quite blunt with you. I don't support the notion of a strong mayor in the total sense that he or she would control all the bureaus, but I do believe we need to take a look at some different options, and I think giving some citizens that charge to look at it in a thoughtful manner and perhaps come back with reforms that the city, that voters would approve or disapprove is a good idea. Questions from the audience?
I'm Carter Kennedy, City Club member. While your children's initiative is wonderful, is there anything the city can do to improve the public schools and the colleges and universities in the area?
Well, I think we all care about our public schools and our higher education institutions. Over my past 4 years in city, we have provided over $40 million to the school districts in Portland. We continue to support Portland State through, we're helping them build a brand new engineering building. And we've worked, obviously with OHSU recently on issues that are important to their future as well. So these higher education in our schools are very important priorities. I think the Children's Initiative is a way that helps make schools better too. To the extent you have children arriving at school at kindergarten ready to learn, that's going to allow teachers to focus on teaching. not on being a counselor, not on being a nurse, social worker too. To the extent we have after-school programs in every middle school and every elementary school throughout Portland, kids are going to be able to retain more of what they learned during the school day, and they're going to help go on to graduate from high school, or graduate high school. So yeah, not to say we don't have our work cut out for us, but I think the city regards higher ed and our schools as essential to our healthy future. Yes.
Joella Whirlin, club member. Basically, this is related to the question that was just asked. How does the Portland City Council coordinate with the Portland School District in determining the best allocation of city resources to support the schools? I mean, in our livability index, certainly in other cities, already our reputation for poor support of our schools is recognized. I mean, I've heard it myself in traveling. So, we make the distinction between the school district and the city, but in other parts of the country, they don't make that distinction. So what is the coordination process? Thank you.
Well, the coordination process, I think, is that again, as I said, we work closely, I think, with all the school districts in Portland, including Portland Public Schools, including David Douglas, Park Rose, Reynolds. And in the days, when my earlier term on the city council, where we had more of a flush budget situation, we did provide cash assistance. We helped fund summer schools. We helped restore summer schools. We took over the school police. We are maintaining some of their fields now through our parks department. I know people outside Portland don't recognize that distinction, but when we're sitting here with our budgets, we recognize that basically it's how much money can we help, or what services can we assume, or through things like a children's initiative, how can we help schools do their job better?
Katie King, City Club member. And I also have a question about the Children's Initiative. How does that fit in with the Oregon Children's Plan that was passed by the legislature last session?
I think it complements the Oregon Children's Plan. Part of the Portland Children's Initiative, what it's all about is saying, do we, citizens of Portland, want to take more of our local destiny into our own hands? The Children's Plan provides state funding for some very good programs. There is federal funding for some very good programs too. But they're never enough, and they're always subject to the vagaries of the congressional process or the legislative process. And do we want to subject our kids and ourselves to those uncertainties and vagaries, or do we want to take more of our own destiny in our own hands by putting our local resources on the table to make these proven and effective programs reach more kids? That's how they work together.
Excuse me, I'm Dick Brown, Senior City Club member. I should ask you a question about transportation, but I'm going to leave that for Ray, who's coming up next. In any event, Portland has apparently developed something of a reputation of being anti-development or commercial development friendly, and with Columbia Sportswear being the poster child. Would you comment on that, please?
Well, I think that you're right. We have developed this reputation, an unenviable reputation, as being a terrible place to do business. I think the Columbia Sportswear poster child is a good situation. I think that what happened with Columbia should not have happened. And we should never have let them go. And it's an unfortunate situation that happened. I will say also, in future, what are we doing now? I think the council has awoken and realized that many aspects of our building permitting system and our fees for development are broken. We are looking at possibly imposing a 12 to 18-month regulatory moratorium to allow us, it's not a permanent moratorium, but just a temporary moratorium on new regulations, to allow us to really time to get on top of the situation, to look at our building department, to look at our fee schedule and figure out how we can make the system work better. It doesn't mean we're going to fall over and just let development interests drive the agenda, but clearly there are enough horror stories out there that I've heard in my dealings with the public, and all of the council members have heard, that things are not right, and we need to try to get on top of it. The mayor has assumed the responsibility of the Planning and Development Review Bureau, which is a key bureau there, and has devoted her top person, Sam Adams, to shepherding this process. And shortly, I think in early August, we'll be considering a resolution that will set forward some steps in action to say, take a time out, stop new regulations for a while, allow us time to get the system, to make the system work better, and also take a look at our fees that we charge for development.
Ray Bolani, a City Club member. As previewed here I go. You know, when we talk about sustainability, considering that we have more automobiles than we have people in this region, that are being driven more and more all the time, and that compete with scarce urban space for people, to talk about sustainability and not address that problem is an oxymoron. So, what are the plans for the future? What are the plans for curbing automobiles and automobile use and provide more space for people?
Well, I think that much of what the city, and I certainly don't want to pay short shrift to the tremendous investments and planning we've done in transportation as a city. I've just watched Max go by here and realized that, I don't know, curbing automobile use to me means providing people with alternatives, better options, whether it's Max, streetcar, walking, biking, or the buses. And I think Portland, is second to none in our investment in those areas. And I think it's starting to pay off. But like every city in America, the overwhelming use of people going from point A to point B is still the automobile. So I think we have to recognize we need to get a lot more people using transit. Our whole land use development pattern of locating jobs close to, or people living close to where they work, is going to help reduce congestion. We also need to look at lower emission or clean air vehicles, and the city has started to purchase the dual fuel vehicles in its own fleet, and we certainly are trying to live by example as well.
Frank Rudloff, City Club member. I applaud the Children's Initiative that you're introducing here, and but wanted to ask, in your introduction, you talked about what do we want the city of Portland to be. You made the distinction of what we want it to be versus what we want it to look like, and you talked about in your description of the Children's Initiative funding programs, funding activities, et cetera. But you haven't really talked about the physical environment and thinking of Ray, what children have to negotiate in the physical environment, and what can we do to make our physical environment more one that works for children. Part of that may be transit, part of it may be the things you just talked about, but how does that fit into your thinking?
Well, that's an interesting question. I guess that what I really meant to say was that sometimes, particularly in city government as opposed to the county, you deal with kind of the bricks and mortar issues. It's restoring a PGE park. It's building a transit mall, doing an East Bank Esplanade. It's pretty much things on the ground. And what I'm trying to say is we also need to, as a city, we need to concentrate as well on our soul, basically, the human soul and infrastructure as it relates to children too. That's what I mean by having daycare or after-school programs at every middle school and every elementary school. That's an infrastructure investment that we need to also heed. Making sure that more children have access to these early childhood development programs. These are infrastructure investments every bit as much as redoing a road, in my mind.
Hi, Carol Witherell, City Club member. I want to build on Frank's question. It's easy sometimes to think that it's our children and families that need fixing and to put more programs or more resources into that. Another approach is the one that I understand the Multnomah City Commission on Children and Families has taken, which is to use the assets building program where youth ages 6th grade through 12th and their families and communities survey the number of assets that these kids have as they're growing up. And we found that they have less than half of the assets that are needed for healthy development and learning. What have we learned from those surveys? My understanding is communities that have taken those seriously and have really made infrastructural decisions about what kind of communities do we want to be for our children and for all of our citizens. What are we learning in that area?
That has identified, as you said, several assets that we're deficient in or as a community for our kids. And one of those assets that we're deficient in is clearly, as I recall from the survey, is role models, parental role models for children. Not enough children have those. Again, the Children's Initiative will help invest in mentoring programs. A very successful program, Friends of the Children, which provides a paid mentor to serve about up to 8 children. Duncan Campbell is the creator of this program. It's been recognized nationally and internationally as a very effective program. There's too many kids out there that don't have, for better or worse, have dysfunctional parents or parents that just are not capable of being the role model they need. And we need to, I don't like to sound like big government or anything, but we need to make sure there are effective role models for kids and that they get connected with those.
Marcus Samantel, club member. As a retired farmer from outside of the city of Portland, I'm very happy to see the city of Portland really dealing with CSOs. Farmers have dealt with that, with the water issue for years. My question, though, would you comment on the recently established Food Policy Council?
Sure, and I want to thank you for being one of our members of the Food Policy Council. Food Policy Council was established earlier this year by the City Council. It's an advisory council. It's an advisory committee to the city, and its intent is to help the city identify what we can be doing more, or be more cognizant, I guess, as a city of issues related to hunger, food security, and what urban cities like ourselves can be doing more to support local agriculture. I think we know that there's always a constant pressure on the urban growth boundary. We want to sort of counter that pressure by having farmers being able to survive by growing crops on the outskirts of the urban growth boundary to reduce that pressure for them to have to sell their property to development. One of the ways we can do it is by thinking of ways through institutional purchases. It's a city-county food policy council. Through institutional food purchases, through creating more farmers markets or more frequent farmers markets and things like that as ways for us to support local agriculture here in the city, us city folks. And I'll tell you, I've started going to the farmers market every Wednesday afternoon, and it's probably one of the things that makes me happiest every week now is to do that. So that's what the Food Policy Council is about, is to help us gain as a city council more awareness of issues that we should be thinking about more. It's an advisory committee.
We have time for one more question.
Martin Schenker, member of the City Club. The children's initiative that you've described, Dan, does sound like a charismatic program, and thanks for your leadership on that. It does also describe functions that the county traditionally has performed in this community as well, and I wonder if you could tell us how the county and city plan to work together in discharging some of the functions that the initiative would bring into bear, as well as the organizational way that the city and county can do that.
Well, I should say that, first of all, the entire county commission is very much in support of the Children's Initiative. They're all supporting it formally. And this is designed, again, as I said, to complement the work of Multnomah County, not to duplicate or in any way backfill for programs in the county. Again, many programs that are likely to benefit from the Children's Initiative are not programs the county invests in right now. Relief nurseries, Head Start programs, after-school programs. These are all complementary issues that need investment to really serve kids fully. So that's how we work together. The Citizens Oversight Committee will include a county commissioner and a city commissioner, as well as 3 citizens that will advise the investment fund and allocate the investments. So it very much works part and parcel with the county. Well, thank you very much again. I appreciate your time.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Dan Saltzman. I can definitely tell you bring some very valuable skills to our City Council. And with that, the City Club is adjourned.